So as pointed out, I really like these 5-cylinder turbo engines because they don't really have any weak spots. The only problem I still have on this one is that it leaks a bit of oil from the turbocharger. It's not really clear where it's coming from. I think it's coming from the intake of the turbocharger. I checked all the hoses that go there and there's nothing. So not really sure where this is coming from. Over time I've replaced the spark plugs, I did the injector valves, I did the vacuum hoses for the turbo. I also did the crankcase ventilation, which is a bit of a struggle because you have a bunch of bolt right down there and you have to insert it once the intake manifold is already in place, and that is actually nearly impossible. But that's important because when I replace this ventilation, there's also a little hose going from up here down to the crankcase, and they are very thin, so usually they become clogged and then the oil cannot flow back from the intake manifold into the engine. So my hope was that this would also cure the issue that I have with the leaking turbocharger, but so far I didn't. So I had one electrical issue. So people usually mention that the early ones, like year 2000, 2001, they have electrical issues. I cannot really confirm that. Within 2 years I just had a problem once with a broken battery that caused the car to start flickering all the lights when I turned it on. But I just replaced the battery and then it was gone. I had the issue with the check engine light, which is actually quite common on these. You see this also on the S61, the S81. And those are all cars I really like. I mean, they offer everything you want. They offer repairability, safety, comfort, and just everything you want. And that was already at the time, you know, when it was going down for Mercedes and BMW. They really had their peak in the 90s, and then from then it went down. But for me, actually, Volvo, it came a bit later, in the early 2000s, when they started with the V72 and the other cars on that platform. But what I actually wanted to say that the one issue that I had with the check engine light, and that's a quite common thing here, and I replaced so many parts on that car, not only to cure that issue, but also to make the engine run more properly, which it now does. I mean, it's perfectly smooth, you cannot even hear it from inside. I had replaced the spark plugs, I had replaced the oxygen sensor, the injector valves, the crankcase ventilation, etc., bits and pieces, and still I had the check engine light turning on regularly, and then it would just stay on until I disconnect the battery. And what actually brought the cure in the end was to change the fuel pump, because what didn't work anymore, and I hadn't noticed that, was that the primer didn't work. So if you put the car on the second step, the fuel pump needs to run for 1-2 seconds so that it actually increases the pressure to 3 bar at the engine, and that didn't work anymore. It was not coming from the fuel pump relay, it was coming from the fuel pump itself. So I had replaced it, which was a total mess because it's super difficult, but that cured the issue. And now I'm driving for like 10,000 kilometers and this light didn't turn on anymore once. So that's quite cool. And I think that simply due to the primer not running, the car was running fine. I never had any issue even when the light was on, so it was no problem. But probably while the car was running, the fuel pressure could not really reach those required 3 bar, but instead maybe stayed at around 2.9 bar, which was enough for the engine to run, but not enough for the electricity to actually go along. So it just reported this error.